Welcome. Discourse Fridays. This has been a crazy year. 2020 was wild, and 2021 started off with the same energy. Grateful, a lot of things are different, right? But let's talk about what happened on January 6th. My profile, I think I did something on there, and I'll share it on here at a later point, like an immediate reaction. But now it's been a couple months, since January. Now we can reflect on it. Now we can see what has happened, what comes next. And what's interesting is how some are trying to spin it, right? And I say some, I mean the Republicans. But it's interesting because those are their people, right? I remember hearing reports or stories immediately like, oh, that was Antifa in disguise. No, it wasn't. All these attacks against people who are anti-fascist, who go toe-to-toe with fascists, who happen to be Republicans, you see this correlation that it was them. You know what I mean? Like, you want to put the blame on the left or whatever, or liberal, anything, any other con term you could come up with, but they're all false. Many of the liberals or people who even voted for Biden, who were there at the Capitol on January 6th, were either officers who were holding the line or the media. It's intriguing because you have this call out by the president at that time, Donald Trump, call for people to come to the Capitol. I remember even on New Year's Eve, I got with a bunch of my college roommates on Zoom because it was 2020, right? And I remember telling them yo, something crazy is gonna happen January 6th, because we already had the election, and then at that point we already had the results by the end of the year, and I could not have predicted that. I don't think anyone could have predicted what would happen next. But in the course of 2020, I did pay attention to what Donald Trump was saying. I signed up to his crazy email list with the things they would say in that. And there was a call to come to the Capitol, right? This is a rigged election. They gotta uncertify this. These are things they were saying, right? Rallying people up to get them to come to Washington, D.C. from all over the country. And when you look at what happened, wow, right? Because it started off with the rally, right? So Congress is, certifying the election, as they do, to get ready for the 20th of January when the new president comes to power. And there's a Trump rally, basically like down the block, let's say. And Trump is there, and all these Republicans, and they're saying fight. These are the words they're using, right? And they're rallying people up, rallying them up, to the point where at some point they start going to the Capitol. Police are immediately overwhelmed, but they have barriers and all this other stuff. And it was heartbreaking to see the noose and the gallows put up, right? Think about it, when they have the gallows across the street from the Capitol and stuff, or from the White House, wherever they put it. And you have this crowd getting into this mob mentality, charging a federal building, right? Our symbol of our democracy is the Capitol building, right? That's where we send our representatives who represent us, right? Like, those are the people we vote for, and they're certifying the election of the president we voted for, and it's being ransacked. And I know I've seen a lot of the videos too, um, of the police like saying, "Go ahead, like screw it," you know. And you did see a lot of those Capitol police officers fired, right? Not jailed, fired. And the crowd gets bigger. The crowd now starts going inside and approaching the doors, approaching the windows, bashing in the doors, bashing in the windows. And I think one of the most heart-wrenching things I saw, like in the videos of the Capitol being overtaken, was a police officer being beaten with the flag, right? And what's interesting to me is many of those flags in that crowd were Blue Lives Matter flags. So my immediate reaction is, well, that's a lie. That's a lie of a movement, right? How are you gonna say you back the blue and then literally back the blue up against the wall and beat them with pipes and flags? It just indicates how much of a liar you are, how much of a liar that movement was when you say it. You become a hypocrite. Well, all this craziness is going on, you know, you gotta protect the president, move him to the bunker. And it was like a party. They were having like a party, like going on Instagram and Facebook Live, like, oh wow, look what's happening. You have a video of Trump like looking at the mob invading the Capitol, and it's like, wow, like looking at it. Then you have Officer Goodman, who's hailed a hero in many respects, and they charge into the buildings. They're saying all these things where they're, yeah, people with zip ties, people with freaking QAnon guy, and all this other weird anarchy. And I remember that day distinctly because I was at work. I myself am a federal employee. I work for the U.S. government. And while this was happening, I'm like, we're a federal building. Like, what's going to happen here? And what gets me is to like the purpose of the flag, right? And this is what was running through my mind when that's all was happening. Because when it started happening, you know, I kept tabs on the thing during my lunch break, went on Facebook, and I'm watching this thing in live feed. And all my coworkers are like talking about it. I'm like, oh, this is wild. And I'm keeping tabs on it. And the question that popped in my head was, at what point do we turn our flags upside down? So in the United States, the flag means a lot, right? And the most common thing we notice in today's society, or I guess in this past batch of decades, is when the flag is at half mast, indicating that someone has died or we're like in mourning, right? But I think the unique thing is like you flip the flag upside down, like we're at war, like we're under attack. And the thing that was like popping in my head was like, do I go out? Do I gotta flip the flag? Like, this is bad. This is very bad. You're seeing straight chaos wrap around our country, and it's being targeted by a specific group attacking our democracy. The same group who 4 years prior claimed stop crying about it, right? Because when Trump was elected, I remember distinctly as well, because I worked with a lot of students, and they were heart-stricken, like, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my family, right? Given his rhetoric. And I remember because a good friend of mine lives in DC, and they went to the rally against the presidency, right? Because no one really went to the inauguration. We have video proof of that. and that was hilarious. But they protested in the streets. They didn't protest and then go to the White House during the inauguration or go to the Capitol building. They protested in the streets and screamed out their discretions or whatever, their unhappiness. And people want to focus on, like, I think some store windows got broken and property damage, right? What better symbol of property than the U.S. Capitol, which was broken into, smashed in, broke. Like, I work in historic preservation. This stuff is expensive. That's a historic building that dates back a couple hundred years. Every project where you see them scaffolding around it and fixing it and doing all this stuff, that costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of skill to get it right. Even those windows, like, it's a lot of work just to replace a window in a historic building. And they cost so much damage. So much damage. They evacuate or lock up all the senators and representatives and stuff. Like, at all costs, they're trying to protect them. They put them in hiding. They put them in rooms. And even Mike Pence, the vice president, was in the building. Like, and they're just trying to protect these people's lives. And that's another reason why Officer Goodman was hailed as such a hero, because he led the mob astray where they could have gotten the vice president of the United States, you know? And I remember when Trump got COVID, I took COVID way more serious after that. Why? Because if the president of the United States can get this disease, what are the chances I can get it? You know, this is one of the most protected people on earth. You know, like, and they came down with the disease. Now flip it into the mob sense. If they're willing to push past and attack officers while flying Blue Lives Matter flags, imagine what they would have done to any senator or representative or even the vice president. Because these officers are people with guns. And I think that's another sense of embarrassment I felt. Again, we're still in the reflection stage of my reaction to when it happened. The embarrassment I felt is it was taken over without a single shot being fired. The last time the Capitol building or the White House or basically DC was taken over was the War of 1812, when the British came in and burnt the White House to the ground. That's like the last time that ever happened. So there's no precedent to what happens if someone does that, you know? Like, even Andrew Jackson had a party at the White House when he won because he was like the People's Party and stuff. And they trashed the place, but it was a party. So it was like, what do you do in that case? And there's so much video evidence. There was so much live stream that people themselves were doing on their accounts that their faces became synonymous within minutes, within days. Everyone's watching the stuff happen in real time. One of them was even shot and killed in the Capitol, you know? Kudos for the officers to shoot, I guess. Like, preferably I would rather have no one died, honestly. But holy shit, you know? Now you don't shoot. At traffic stops you shoot at. And I think that's another tail bit of the reaction that many people had is like, you know, like George Floyd put a knee on his neck for over 8 minutes. Over $20. Allegedly. These people are charging the Capitol and nothing happens. Many of them walk away scot-free. You know? And they also get into the stories of like people were asked for the National Guard, they were denied. Oh no. Point being is those officers were not prepared for this, right? For this mob to come and just bum rush the Capitol. And that says a lot about our defense. It also says a lot about our country. It also says a lot about policing, because you also look at the Black Lives Matter protests, right? And it's interesting too because you even have freaking nutcases in the House of Reps right now attacking Black Lives Matter as a movement and approach. Like they're attacking them as like similar to like a terrorist organization, right? They need to be investigated and all this other stuff. And I understand the perspective of where they're coming from, but then look at the realities that are being faced across this country. You have Antifa, which stands for anti-fascist, right? As in against fascist regimes, right? The superiority complexes that are often portrayed in white supremacy movements, which then just get coded up as Democrats or coded up as Republicans or coded up as the little OK sign and stuff. Like, holy shit, you know? Then you also have Black Lives Matter. Look at the saying of the damn name, you know? Like, and you want to call them aggressors. They never charged the Capitol. You know? Those were the fascists. Those were the Republicans. Those were majority white people. Just charging in and making it their own. Putting their feet up on people's desks and bashing in doors and breaking windows and creating so much chaos. But we're the crybabies. Or the Democrats were crybabies, right? Like, you lost the election, then get over it. You lost the election, you stormed the Capitol. But let's fast forward now. Enough of my personal backstory and kind of analysis. Then I'll throw up the video when I did the other one at some later time in pieces, because data. But now, it is May 21st, right? Summer's almost upon us. That happened in January. Here we are months later. Over 400 people, I think close to 500 people have been arrested over the thousands that were there. And they're still looking for more people. It was a couple weeks ago. It was a funny story, and I'll share this because I thought it was hilarious. But this guy got caught because somebody he was talking to on Tinder turned him in. Like, he started bragging, like, yeah, I was at the Capitol. And she was like, oh, okay. Reported to the FBI, and they got him. Like, that was hilarious. But you have the hundreds of people now arrested. And what's interesting now is, what are they arrested for? For trespassing, right? That's like a misdemeanor. Okay, slap on the wrist. You can do so many little things with that. But you have all these Democrats and all these honest Republicans, which I foresee a third party happening out of this. Fingers crossed. I think it's like similar to the death of the Whig Party, but I digress. You want them to throw the book at them, throw all the law at them, like put them in jail forever for what they did. You know, like a police officer was killed by these actions. How many injuries were happened by these actions, right? And it's interesting seeing the reaction from Republicans, like trying to diminish or defend, like, or belittle what happened, but use these same arguments all summer of 2020 when the Black Lives Matter protests were going on. They were saying throw the book at them, arrest them all, put them in everything, charge them with everything. And these were people who were just so tired and fed up, majority, you know. I don't know these people in total. And now the story's flipped, because now it's your people who did this, and you're trying to just like brush it over, right? Just as they brushed over impeaching Trump right away until after the election, and then made the defense of we can't impeach a president because he's not president anymore, right? But you could make a Supreme Court justice like in a week. Anyway, you have this pain that the country felt, this trauma that many representatives felt. Like, it broke my heart too, and I cried a little bit watching it when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez gave her testimony, kind of like reflecting what the hell happened. She thought she was gonna die, you know. I don't come from a perfect life, and there have been several situations where, like, holy shit, I'm about to die, you know. You never forget that moment. And that's just me speaking from experience. I know everyone's different, but these aren't things you just get over. You can't just push past this. The trauma she was informing us that she was going through was crazy, right? People were like, where is she? Where is she? Like, granted, it was an officer trying to get her to the safer spot, but it's like, still, holy shit. When you're in that moment and you're like, oh my God, I'm about to die. These people are going to kill me. Like it's France, France in the French Revolution. It's a wild time. And it's painful because it gets dismissed. It becomes an other, right? It becomes belittled. And that's another topic entirely in the context of gaslighting, right? Trying to belittle the pain and suffering that people are going through. For what? You're not listening to what's happening. You're not listening to these people who went through this traumatic experience. And that's why I understand why a lot of the liberals and Democrats, whatever, but a lot of people want like the maximum extent of the law pushed against these people who are arrested, and hopefully the more that will be caught. But how? There's no law that's against an insurrection. There's no laws that actually depict like a lot of the defenses that are coming out right now from the lawyers, because they can afford them, and are being fundraised, right? A lot of these lawyers who, everyone has a right to a lawyer, and the lawyers, they're going to do their job. But there's no precedent for this law or crime, Give them a ticket for trespassing, that's about it. And there's a huge defense coming where a lot of these people are going to get off either scot-free or pay a fine or face little jail time. And that's crazy. And the irony is, this comes in defense of the same arguments used that same summer, or summer of 2020. A lot of these Black Lives Matter protesters who were arrested en masse, who were beaten and pushed and shoved and all that other stuff, the ones who went to jail, especially the ones, I think it was in Portland, when they surrounded or trespassed on the federal building, because federal buildings have different laws in state governments and city streets, but nonetheless, they're facing similar charges, and their defenses are like, okay, yes, they stepped on the grounds, but they didn't break anything. My client didn't break anything. That was the other people. You have the video of the others, not my client. So my client should get a ticket, and that's it. They're using the same defense on the other side. And as Americans, are we okay with that? Like, I agree completely with the Black Lives Matter protests and the pain and suffering that so many of these communities are going through, even though the protests that are happening now for Palestine, and people using their voices, going to the street, causing discord from the normal. I don't agree with property damage, but I agree less with death, you know what I mean? And pain. Houses can be rebuilt. We do it every year in Florida after a hurricane. But people should matter. And symbols should matter, right? So now we're at a pivotal point where we gotta analyze, what do we do to move forward? And that's some deep doo-doo. It just points out the hypocrisy and the white supremacy that is the United States. And it sucks. And it sucks so much because we keep having to shine the light on this over and over again. With every protest, with every movement, with every speech, with every leader, with every insurrection, we keep having to bear the brunt of this so that we all can move forward. Because many are just holding us back. You want to call, many Republicans called Democrats crybabies in 2016, and those same Republicans then decided to storm the Capitol in 2020. And then cry when they got arrested at the airport. And I would love to understand the mindset with that. To me, that's interesting. Could you imagine flying from I think it was North Dakota or Florida to Washington D.C., right? A lot of these people coming from these middle of nowhere areas going to a very populated city, and having now worked and lived in the West for a couple of years now at this point, and living in these small areas where the populations are 1,000, 4,000, whatever, under 20,000 people, a common rhetoric you hear is they don't like cities. It's too busy for me. It's too many people. But those are the people who flew to DC, a very congested area, very tourist area, COVID or not COVID. It's very packed. Go to a packed rally with no mask, and then storm the Capitol, push against police officers, kill some police officers, injure police officers, attack the symbol of our democracy, and then after it's all said and done, I got a flight in the morning, I have to go back home and go to work. To me, that's an interesting perspective, or a mindset. How can you do that? And that to me is mind-boggling. But we can't get past this without solving this issue. And do these protesters deserve to go to jail? In many respects, I say yes. But then you also send the Black Lives Matter protesters to jail. Did we all just take this L and make everyone go to jail, right, for doing harm? But then it impedes on our First Amendment, the right to freedom of speech. Holy crap, it gets so complicated. And the only way, honestly, to fix it would be bipartisan, right? Because you did have 35 Republicans vote to say, yeah, let's do a commission to really deep sea study this, right? And some of the prosecutors are taking an interesting case too. Do you start prosecuting from January 5th, from January 6th at 8 a.m., from November 4th? You know what I mean? Because it wasn't an overnight thing, but overnight's when all this crime happened. But it's conspiracy, it's built, it's so convoluted and connected that as Americans we have to move forward from this. But how do we move forward if not together? And we're not together. An interesting case that I'm actually hopefully finishing reading soon is another insurrection that happened in 1862. John Brown stormed and captured and overtook the U.S. Armory at Harper's Ferry in Virginia, now West Virginia. It was a whole insurrection. The plan was noble, though, go plantation to plantation, free all the slaves until slavery is done. But you're attacking our country. So citizens round up, communities rounded up with guns and everything, and then the army got sent in. Ironically enough, Robert E. Lee was there, and put a squash to that within a day or two, whatever it was. They captured them, they tried them, and they killed them. So in theory, we do have a precedent of what we do with insurrectionists. Personally, I don't think they should die. But But what do we do? What do we do to move forward? And how clearer can we show that there's like a two-tier or several tier justice system, you know? Because all summer you're arresting in mass these Black Lives Matter protesters and pepper spraying them and attacking them and shooting bullets at them and shooting or rubber bullets or whatever, ramming them with your car, beating them with nightsticks, shoving little girls all year, all summer. And come January 6th, what happened? And you can't like not look at it without the perspectives of, imagine those were Black Lives Matter protesters. How would they have reacted? How quickly would the National Guard have been there? And it's those perspectives and those realities of what we know the answers to be is what brings so much pain in this country. And the best solution would be to throw the book at them, you know, at these insurrectionists, to arrest them all and try them all. But does that move us forward or does that move us backward? You know what I mean? January 6th was a wild time. And it's not over. It's not going to be over for a long time. And I would implore everyone, the same way many of us, myself included, watched the trial of George Floyd, I encourage you to watch these trials as they start up. It's painful. And it's hard to be a citizen because we want to kind of just live our lives, but as much as we give this country gives us. And to hold it accountable, we have to pay attention to all this stuff. And it pains me too, because like, I'm going to do another video on Republicans as well, because that's a nightmare. But look who's trying to kick this under the rug. Look at who's diminishing what happened. Look who's saying what happened on January 6th isn't a big deal, and then go off and say, I back the blue. They're full of shit. Plain and simple. Like, maybe because I grew up in New York City and the Bronx and Yonkers and stuff, but for me, like, your word is your bond. You know what I mean? And their word don't mean nothing. These Republicans are allowing their supporters to go be arrested. And another thing that I find interesting is, technically, if you commit a federal crime or in federal jail, you don't vote. They lost a couple hundred voters, and in these small communities where they're from, that's a big push. But I hope these Republicans who did vote against Trump and are heartbroken about this insurrection can create a new political party, because this one is dead in the water, in my opinion. Like, they were founded from the ashes of the Whig Party, and look what they became now. And you're seeing this division, like with Liz Cheney and the 35 representative who said yes to the commission. And even that in itself is an interesting take on the story if you follow it directly, because the Democrats who do have the House, the Senate, well, a tie in the Senate, basically they have a Senate breaker with the vice president and the presidency, amended the commission over and over and over again to what the Republicans wanted, just for them to say vote against it. Well, now we have a commission who's going to look deeply into this, whatever, and let's see what happens. I'm hoping justice rings true. I'm hoping those who broke the law, right, are tried with the same intensity they want people who were protesting against Black lives or protesting for Black lives, the same way they wanted them, the book thrown at them. Make it fair. And we often say, like, what, justice is blind. Like, no, it's not. It's not. Not in this country. And we can't be blind to it either. We have to keep moving forward and see what this changes. January 6th will be a day that goes down in infamy in the United States, how we became such an embarrassment across the world. But there's only one way forward. Oh, one way to go, and that's forward. It's not going to be easy, but keep paying attention to what's being said, who's saying what, and have these conversations. Talk to others the same way we were all shocked with 9/11, and we all remember where we were that day. This is another moment like that. I think not the same, but like that. The very impactful day that whenever we have kids in this economy, when they're in high school, those are the pictures that'll be in the yearbook. I mean, the history books. QAnon. All these conspiracy theories and lies that just circulate and anti-vax and anti-mask, and Trump won the election, and people still believe he won the election. Look what's happening here in freaking Arizona. They're counting them again. And it's being done by this no-name, not affiliated group who are majority Trump supporters. And when you work for the federal government, you take an oath. Yeah, it's gonna be very weird explaining this to our kids. Like, yeah, like when I was in 3rd grade or like 2nd grade, yeah, I lived in New York City and terrorists attacked the World Trade Center and killed a lot of people. And then years later, a TV show reality star became president, and when he lost, the nation got invaded by his supporters. Yeah, cyber ninjas, all this stuff. Like, it's wild that they're freaking. First of all, like the commission that's here in Arizona, who's counting these elections again, is called cyber ninjas. Like, what? Who would hire ninjas to count on an election? That happened months ago, almost a year now. But I digress. Keep having these conversations. Have them with your neighbors, with your friends, family. It's wild. And if your family was there at the insurrection, you'll turn them in. There's rewards out there. January 6th, 2021. Wow. How low can you go? How much of a hypocrite can you be? How much pain must we go through to move forward as a nation? Growing pains. And with that, I'll end this here. Sorry about coming on late. Got busy at work. But nonetheless, take care and have discourse. Let's talk about it.